Hey everyone, Nicole Herrick here with you. I'm going to show you how to create this style image for the Iconic, an Australian web store. So from a deep edged image. So if I go to Photoshop, I've got a deep edged image and I'm going to make it look like this so that it fits within the right parameters of the Iconic. So I want to show you firstly, this is the Iconic's specs. So you can see here that they want the canvas size to be 1600 pixels by 2000 pixels and the DPI needs to be 300. The gray that we're going to use is RGB values of 240, 240, 240. They also have a way that they want you to save the file names, so just read through that. And they also have margins that apply to different products. So you need to sort of read through the whole thing. This depends on whether you're using flat lay garments or like products that are sitting on a surface. You know, it's kind of all different. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to start from our basic deep edged image. Now you can create this as a set of actions, just go new action. But sometimes with this particular one, each individual image needs to be done kind of on its own to make sure it looks right. So I'm not going to do an action for this one. All right, so the first step that we need to do is go image and trim off all of our excess. So make sure you're ticked transparent pixels and trim away from all of the edges. All right, that's what that does. Now we're gonna go and change the image size. So image size. And what I need to determine is this image taller than it is wider, or is it wider than it is taller? And that will determine which width you change here. So I can see that this image is taller than it is wider. So I'm going to change, firstly make sure that it's 300 resolution. Now I'm going to change the height because this one is taller. All right, so I need to make the overall height is going to be 2000, but I need to leave room for my margins. So I'm going to say 2000 minus my 200 pixels at the top and minus my 200 pixels at the bottom. So that gives me 1600. Don't worry about the width, just let that come out to whatever it needs to come out as. Let's go OK. All right, now we're going to change our canvas size. So image canvas size, change this to pixels, and we're going to make the height 2000 and the width 1600. Okay, there we go. So now we have our correct ratio. And now we want to add our gray background, so 2 layers of gray backgrounds. So I'm going to add a new layer and I'm going to bring that below this one. So the first gray background I'm going to just do as a single solid color. So I'm going to go edit and fill, and I'm going to choose color from this one. Okay, so what I want to do is, let's just say it's a different color. I want to just put in the RGB values, 240, 240, and 240. Okay, there we go. There's our perfect, the Iconic gray. Let's go OK, make sure this is on normal and 100. All right, so there's our basic gray. Now I want to create this back wall. So let's say that this is like a surface that the product is sitting on, and this is like a gray back wall. Also, just to keep this in mind, this only works if you have shot a product at eye level, okay? Not if you've shot it sort of from above a little bit. All right, so let's create another new layer, and this one I want to select just the wall part. So I'm going to go down to about there. Okay, this is going to be my wall part. And what I want to do is do a gradient on this. So I choose my gradient tool, and then up here, if I click inside that, then I get my gradient that I can adjust. All right, so I want to make this top one over here the 240 by 240 by 240 gray. Okay, so I've already got that in there. But I want to make this gray a little bit darker. So I've just made that. We can just make it all 20. 206, just as an example, okay? And I want to make sure that usually this will be sort of in the middle here at 50%, but what I want to do is drag this down so it's at about 25%, because if I look over here, I can see that the darker gray goes from about here to here, and then this is all the 240 gray, okay? So that's why we're doing this. All right, let's go okay. And I want to fill this from here to here. I'm going to draw a line. So I need to hold down shift so that I'm drawing a straight line. Click at the bottom, drag my line up. There we go. Now, if you've done your grays around the other way, you might need to click from the bottom and draw down. I'm going to press deselect. All right, so there we go. So we've got our back wall and our flat surface. Now we need to create this shadow underneath here. Okay, so I'm going to create another new layer, and it needs to sit just underneath the product layer. Now I need to create a black image that is the same shape as this particular product. All right, so what I'm going to do is click on the product layer, choose my magic wand. I want to make sure that I don't have contiguous ticked, and I'm going to make my tolerance 5. I'm going to click outside the product. So this selects everything that is outside the product, obviously. Now I'm going to choose inverse, and there we go. Now I have a perfect shape of the exact same shape of this product. Now I want to go back to my layer that I'm going to paste in my shadow. So I want to click this layer and then go edit, fill with black. All right, I'm going to choose deselect, and I'm just going to move that to the side. Oops, sorry. Going to move that to the side there so I can see it. Now we want to make this nice and blurry like a shadow is, so we're going to use filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay, now play around with this, okay, and just have a look at some existing examples. You'll see that it's not too blurry, but it does have a bit of a blur. You can change this at a later stage, but just sort of pick a spot where you think it's kind of roughly the right one. I'm going to go for 30 pixels radius, okay? All right, now I need to change the shape of this shadow, all right? I want to bring it down here. So what I want to do is go edit, free transform. Now I want to skew the angle of this. So to skew the angle, I hold down Control or Apple, and I click on this top one, and I'm just going to drag it down to the side. Okay, if I let go of Control, I can then click in the center and move this a little bit. And I'm going to click Control again and just bring this down a little bit more. I might also want to make it a bit wider this way. Yeah, okay, that's looking good. So just kind of have a look over here and use that as reference. I'm going to double click in the center to set that. All right, so now I want to bring the opacity of this down. All right, so I'm going to make sure I'm on that layer. Make an opacity of around about, yeah, let's go 26. All right, so you can see it's actually looking a little bit harsh still. So I want to go back to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and just blur that again a little bit. All right, and if I'm not happy with my opacity, just bring that down a little bit more. All right, I'm good with that. Now, I also can see that it's actually a little bit darker over here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. So right click on the layer, duplicate, okay. And then I'm going to do the free transform again. And I'm going to just bring this back further. Okay, there we go, and I might just bring the opacity down on that one a little bit. Back up. Okay, now I want to grab my eraser and just get rid of sort of any bits that look weird. So you can see there's a little bit of a shadow hanging over here on this layer. I'm going to get rid of that. Right, there we go. So just do a little cleanup if you feel like you need to. Okay, so there we go. So that's looking good. If you've got quite a tall image, you might also need to do a little bit of shading around here that goes onto the back wall. This will be really subtle, okay? I'm going to create another new layer here, and I'm going to do this just with my paintbrush. I'm going to grab my paintbrush and choose black, okay? And I'm going to make my opacity about 11, okay? I'm going to choose my brush size as around about 267. That's good. So I'm just going to draw that in, okay? So I just did really simple. I'll just do that again. So I just went, it's going to be a little bit at the top, and then it's going to get a little bit wider at the bottom. All right, there we go. So that just shows a little bit of shadow. You can also do another like little line there just at the bottom to make that a bit darker, closer to the image, closer to the product, sorry. And there we go. All right, how is that looking, people? Do we think that that looks pretty much like this? I think it does. Don't forget, if you haven't already sort of made changes to how this product looks, if it looks a bit flat, you can go to your levels, bring up the brightness a little bit, and bring down the mid-tones a little bit, just to make it look a little bit nicer, a little bit more contrasted, pop off the page a little bit more. All right, let's save this. I'm just going to go File, Save As, make it a JPEG, and be sure to use the parameters that they state in their naming method. So I think it's something like the SKU, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, and then click Save. Make sure that you choose maximum on this and go OK. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make the product look like it is just floating in front of a grey or white wall. So this is good for any kind of hanging bags, which this kind of actually is. So I've already got my grey background in there, and I've got my correct margins, my correct sizing and pixels and everything. Now what I want to do is go to my product layer, and I'm going to right click, go up to blending options, click drop shadow, and then we're going to adjust this to make it look like this. All right. So the first thing I want to do is change my distance. Now distance brings it further out from the product. You also need to check your angle as well. So we have a look at the angle here. It doesn't actually matter which way your angle goes, but just kind of have a look at where you think the light is coming from in your image. So I'm going to say the light is sort of coming from this direction. So we're going to make the shadow come out this side. All right. So we add some distance to bring it further out from the wall, okay? We also need to feather it, make it a lot softer. So I'm going to change the size. Okay, there we go. That's a nice, yeah, I think that's about right. And now it's still looking a little bit dark, so I'm just going to adjust the opacity down a little bit. All right, there we go. As easy as that. So now click OK, and our image looks like it is floating out in front of a white or grey wall. Save that as a JPEG, and that one is good to go. Okay, now I'm also just going to show you how to apply a slightly different shadow if your product is laying flat. So you can see here that all of these have had a little shadow applied. So here is, I've got one pre-prepared with my perfect grey background, and I'm just going to do the shadow on this. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this a bit better. Right click on my product layer, blending options, drop shadow. Now again, just determine which way that you would like your angle to go. So you can do that by changing this. Yeah, let's just use this angle, that's fine. So you want less of a distance, so you can see that this is way too much distance. Just want a little bit of distance, and just have a play around with your size. You want it to be, yeah, probably about a distance of 4 and a size of 10 pixels, but just obviously have a little play around with that and see what looks best, okay? Click OK, and that is our perfect little tiny drop shadow for a product that is laying flat. If you have a product that is laying down but not super flat, then you would make your shadow a little bit bigger in your size. Alright, so I hope that was helpful, guys. That is how you turn a deep etched image into this style of image. Perfect, for the iconic specs.